Hello. Welcome again. This is Robert Denton, and this is my book, High Performance After Burnout. You'll notice the subtitle, Fix the Stress Before the Damage is Done. Right, these videos are about stress, high stress, overwhelming stress, and burnout, which you may well realize is a major problem. The important thing to understand is you don't have to go through burnout. Stress is something we do to ourselves. It's the way we think about our life, and it's wrapped up in our beliefs and values. And particularly it comes from a center of the brain known as the emotional intelligence. And when emotional intelligence gets stuck, it begins to create stress. It's like an engine without oil. It begins to get hot and stressed out. What's happening is that in emotional intelligence, when we should be doing something we're not doing, then there is a rub, and that's where the stress comes from. High Performance After Burnout is available at Amazon.com, but if you live in Switzerland, you won't be able to get it because of Swiss government restrictions. There is a email address set up by the Geneva publishers, First House Press. Their address is there, firsthousepress@gmail.com. Contact them and they'll give you all the details. You can pick the book up in person in Geneva, or it can be sent to your Swiss address. Good. Now, in my previous video, I spoke about one of my personal high performance programs I used to help me from falling over, essentially. And this was due to a small accident I had 3 years ago. I slipped on a wet deck and I did the splits. Well, not like a can-can dancer, I did the splits sideways. And that had the effect of finishing off an injury that had been caused when I was 14 playing rugby at boarding school when, in about 1959-60, when the rule was get up and keep going. Okay, so I didn't have any treatment whatsoever, although I felt something was serious. And it affected my walking afterwards throughout my life, and as I went through my 40s, 50s, I noticed a slight flick in my foot. I could never parallel ski perfectly because my left foot would wobble slightly, and little things like that. Anyway, the slip on the wet deck finished it off, and I have a semi paralyzed left foot. Now, this makes me very unstable when I'm walking. And I did fall over a couple of times because I trod on something while I was walking. It could be a small stone. I mean, there's always building works in Geneva, and concrete gets dropped all over the place, and there are stones and things. And it's not uncommon to see stones on the footpath. I have to watch very carefully where I walk, and if I happen to be distracted, then I can step on something I shouldn't. And as I said, I went down a couple of times. Well, that was enough, and I said, I've got to stop that. So I simply wrote a high performance subconscious mind program to protect me from from my ankle and then my knee giving way. And when they give way, if I stepped on something like a small stone or an acorn, or a pine cone or something else, a twig, I've fallen off a tree on the pavement, those are enough to cause, just tip my ankle and then everything goes. I set up a program and I mentioned it, and how it worked tremendously well, because a couple of days ago I did step on an acorn. It's autumn and there's a lot of acorns on the anyway, my ankle locked up, my knee locked up at the same time, and I didn't fall over. And then the following day, I crossing the road and watching the traffic, I stepped into a small pothole in the road, and the same thing happened. Instead of my foot and my ankle and my knee going, they just locked up, as according to the subconscious program that I designed and installed. Now, feedback. I had an amazing feedback, and you lot are very bright and very smart and know what's what. And one person said, well, okay, but if you've got a paralyzed foot, how that means the nerves to the muscles aren't working. So how on earth can the subconscious brain send a message down to the muscles in your ankle and your foot? And in my knee? Well, good question. Very, very good question. And the answer is this. Over the past 10, 15 years, a lot of research has been going on into exoskeletons to help paraplegics walk again. And one of the spin-offs of that is they've discovered, or scientists have discovered, that the brain sends messages down just beneath the skin or the surface of muscles, just as it would down nerves. Now, my leg isn't completely paralyzed, it's only partially paralyzed. So there are still some nerves obviously working, but undoubtedly some messages would have been getting down the muscle as well. And this brings into, or highlights, the interest in muscle memory, because whether there is such a thing as muscle memory, or whether the muscle is getting memory directly from the subconscious brain or mind, that is an interesting area of research. However, this is how it works. So, good question. Thank you. Right, now to move on. Burnout doesn't have to happen. Burnout is because we are not listening to our gut feeling, our intuition. We need this. It's our guide, our internal guide. And when we ignore it, then we're up against the rub. We're up against friction, and friction is stress, and stress is what triggers production of cortisol in our body. And if we don't have enough substantial exercise to burn off that cortisol, then it stagnates in our body and our brain, and then we eventually run into burnout. Burnout is not just a psychological thing, it is a very physical thing through this, the hormone cortisol, too much hormone cortisol. We need cortisol for a lot of things, for our bodies and brains to work. It's when we have too much of it, too much stress, too much cortisol, and then too much stagnating cortisol. Most of the time, doctors advise exercise, go to the gym, go jogging. Yes, great, fine. But if your stress is in the morning, say in the office, or before you leave home, and we all know about those kind of stresses, then we're living with that stress all day long before we can get to the gym at 6 in the evening. It's too late. The cortisol has done the damage. We need to burn that cortisol off immediately. And we know in our modern office lives, we can't do that. the thing is, don't let that happen. Don't let the stress, okay, fine. The stress is going to happen, but the point is we can stop the stress from getting to producing cortisol. And we can do that by creating automatic subconscious high performance programs, which given that we've identified a certain stress or stressor or series of stressors, we can get the subconscious mind to instantly recognize them and then shunt them into a safe quarantine area behind a stress barrier in our minds, which prevents the cortisol from being produced. That's the key. That's how it's done. But there's a lot. It's principally it's simple. It's not rocket science. It needs very, very careful management in writing and uploading those high performance programs. Otherwise, if there's an error in the program, then the program is just going to repeat the error. That's not really smart. So this is why I've developed my skills as a high performance subconscious brain coach and trainer in developing those very sophisticated skills to ensure that high performance programs for the subconscious mind are exactly what are required, no more, no less. That's it for today. That's it for this video. Remember to sign on to or register so you're notified of the next video. And take care and watch that stress, because you really do need to get in control of it rather than have you controlling, rather than it controlling you. Just remember the metaphor of the tail wagging the dog. Next time you feel stressed, you know that there's something there that's really shaking you by the scruff of the neck, and you're just not listening. I did it. I know. I thought I was doing all the right things, working hard for my companies, when I had the feeling that I should be letting go of that and doing something else, and I didn't, and I ended up in burnout. And then, but then I discovered the subconscious brain, subconscious mind, and I discovered how to manage it and improve my life by taking control of myself and the assets that I have. So there we are. This is Robert Denton signing off.